Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller gives his outspoken views on the current crime problem. That story straight ahead.
The Minister of National Security responds to concerns that crime could affect tourism. That story is coming up straight ahead.
Concern over voter registration complaints. And a prominent attorney questions the legal and political sanity of MPs after the Boundaries Report ruling is handed down. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller is calling the recent crime initiatives announced by National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage a waste of time, as he insists violent criminals need to face real consequences. Miller is renewing his call for capital punishment following the recent spike in murders. Jasmine Brown has his candid comments in this report.
Miller says he's not convinced those initiatives are enough to curb violent crime, as he says it's clear the criminals have taken over the country.
If you ain't got the guts to hang nobody, just leave it alone and let them take over the country. Just let them run amok the way they've been doing, and just let them kill all of us. They ain't gonna kill me, because it can be done before me, I promise you that.
In the House of Assembly last week Wednesday, Dr. Nottage announced more than a dozen crime-fighting initiatives following a weekend of bloodshed in which 7 murders were recorded.
I think the problem you have, listen, the Prime Minister says that the Bahamas is tantamount now to the Wild Wild West. The Commissioner says we're just emotional in our sense of what is going on. But if 7 people get killed in 48 damn hours, if that is something to get upset about, somebody need to tell me what it is.
Given what he calls the current crisis, Miller, whose son Mario was murdered in 2002, insists the initiatives being introduced are simply not enough to deter murderers.
Unless people appreciate the fact that they will pay for their crime, that there's a price to pay, that when you take a life, you all will be taken, nothing can happen as far as I'm concerned. These guys don't give a damn what they do, because they know they're going to wake up the next morning, catch a shower, eat 3 meals, and go to bed. So why should they be concerned about you or me or anyone else? They can kill knowing that there's no repercussion for their life. And unless we bring in capital punishment on the books, we're only wasting our time as far as I'm concerned.
The mandatory imposition of the death penalty was abolished in 2006 after the Privy Council ruled it was unconstitutional. The last hanging took place in January 2000. Miller says at this point it's the politicians who have the power to change what's happening before criminals take over. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, less than 2 weeks after likening the Bahamas to the Wild West, Prime Minister Christie is insisting there is a definite link between unemployment and crime. Christie says in many cases the desperation has set in for young men without jobs.
There is a great danger in our country of young men in particular who are evolving in a way where they are faced with levels of desperation arising out of unemployment.
2 weeks ago, Christie said the recent spate of murders in New Providence was reminiscent of the Wild West. He told reporters that the situation must solicit a major and continuous effort by his administration to flood the streets with officers in an effort to do all that is necessary to bring this madness to a halt. Today, he told a room full of teachers that unemployment has become a catalyst for crime.
Unemployment is serving to be an incubator for criminality. And we had better bring focus as a country, as a region, on the trouble and potential trouble that exists in our backyard.
According to the latest figures from the Department of Statistics, unemployment in the Bahamas stands at 11.6%. In other news, the Minister of National Security is defending the country's record on crimes against visitors. This comes days after the president of Baha Mar asserted that if crime is not brought under control, the country's tourism product could take a hit. Giorgio Bain tells us more.
Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Norridge responds to fears from Bahama officials that crime could affect tourism numbers. According to Norridge, crime has never directly affected any tourists. Less than 3 months into the new year, 30 murders have already been recorded in the country, according to the Nassau Guardian's records. Bahama Executive Graham Davis said it is his belief that crime impacts every tourist destination, and Bahamians must all be very mindful of how crime can really turn an economy in a negative direction. Norridge said while he understands Davis's concerns, millions of tourists come to the Bahamas and are rarely affected by serious crime.
There are very few crimes committed against tourists that they come here in their thousands and are able to walk about the place safely.
According to Norridge, he received several reports stating how pleased tourists have been with the levels of police presence in tourist hotspots, and that is something that his ministry intends to enhance to ensure that tourists always feel safe.
They can go to the beaches, they can go shopping, they can use the taxis and the horse and carriages. And for the cruise ship passengers, my understanding has been that they have been very impressed by the role the police is playing in the downtown area.
Davis also said once Bahama is open and thousands of persons are back to work, the crime rate would steadily decline. But according to Norridge, he feels that the measures being taken by his ministry will allow for swift reduction in crime statistics.
We are doing everything to counteract the perceived increases in crime.
Reporting for our news, I'm Georgia Bain.
Well, after reports that some parliamentary registration department staff are intentionally making it difficult for Bahamians to register to vote, the minister responsible is laying his frustrations on the table. Dr. Bernard Norridge telling our news that he is frustrated with this continuous back and forth with staff and is very disappointed.
Very disappointed with the personnel issues, where there are persons who, notwithstanding all of the explanations that have been made to them, all of the education they've had about it, all of the recurrent interceptions we've had to make with them. You know, there have been one or two persons who
Norridge added that despite reports that registration challenges, he is encouraged by the recent uptick in registration numbers. He says he believes that no matter what, Bahamians will go out and vote.
I'm encouraged by the recent uptick in registration, and I think that if we continue along these lines, the figures won't be very much different from they were in 2012. That is my wish. It is my hope that, you know, we get it right, and most Bahamians will vote.
Attorney Wayne Monroe is questioning the political and legal sanity of MPs Richard Lightbourne and Dr. Andre Rollins following their failed attempt to legally challenge the Boundaries Report. Justice Ian Winder rejected their application for a judicial review, citing insufficient evidence to support their case, while Monroe says that's because their argument was pure rubbish. Fonique 2 reports.
Attorney Wayne Monroe says he is not surprised by Supreme Court Justice Ian Winder's decision to deny Andre Rollins and Richard Lightbourne's application for judicial review into the constitutionality of the Constituencies Commission report. The two MPs argue that the report should be void because it was tabled months after the constitutionally mandated 5-year deadline, and it was infected with bias and gerrymandering in favor of the PLP. Monroe says he understands why there is a degree of desperation by two people fighting to stay relevant.
I thought the action was just sheer rubbish. Stop and reflect on it. Apart from their participation in it, they say their concept is the Constitution says you must review this every 5 years, right? The Constitution doesn't give any consequence if you don't.
Monroe says not only was the opposition represented on the Boundaries Commission, a fearless member of the judiciary served as deputy chair. He also noted that the report was signed by all members.
A very senior and distinguished judge, Senior Justice Stephen Isaacs, is a member, and nobody can say that he is partisan to the government. He is fearless like all Supreme Court judges are, and his rulings demonstrate that. And then you have two government members and an opposition member.
Rollins and Lightbourne, who were represented by attorney Michael Scott, plan to appeal the ruling, noting that the two MPs have not received nominations from the FNM ahead of the 2017 general election. Monroe says he guesses they had to find something to occupy their time.
I question, and let me see how you put this in a nice way, the political and legal sanity, not actual mental health of these two, but their legal and political sanity in this action. And we have an unfortunate situation where you have a fractured opposition, and I guess everyone is trying to remain relevant.
The PLP's Candidates Committee voted in favor of ratifying Monroe as the party's candidate for Freetown. Reporting for our News, I'm Vonique Toot.
Still to come on our News, attorney Wayne Monroe addresses rumors of a fight to represent Freetown in the upcoming election, a push to get Junkanoo Carnival bands ready for this year's event, and a new collective bargaining agreement for teachers. That's coming up when our News returns.